Some kids who become famous are just made for being on TV, and Johnny Whitaker was one of those kids. He started acting before he could even read the word Hollywood. He was born on December 13th, 1959 in Van Nuys, California. He had 7 brothers and sisters, so he was kid number 5 out of 8 kids. So getting noticed at home probably meant you had to be really loud or become a TV star. Lucky for him, he was the kind of kid who looked great on camera and didn't need to be loud. While most little kids were learning how to color inside the lines, he was already making his first TV commercial for a car lot. Nothing says you're going to be famous like selling used cars while wearing diapers. But really, he was calm and confident in front of the camera, and it didn't look fake. He wasn't pretending to be someone else. He was just being himself. Pretty soon, that little red-haired boy with the big smile was showing up on TV all over the country. He did lots of commercials for Mattel, the toy company that every kid in the 1960s loved. He was the voice for toys, like Larry the Lion and Crackers the Parrot in their Animal Yakers toy line. These were toys that talked when you pulled a string on them. Yeah, that was really cool back then, and kids went crazy for them. Part of why kids loved the toys was because of that sweet, funny voice that made you feel like Larry and Crackers were your real friends. His early success wasn't just because he was talented. It was also about being in the right place at the right time, and the fact that TV was becoming something every family watched together. And there he was, right in the middle of it all, making millions of people feel like they knew him personally. Have you ever seen a kid in a commercial and thought, wow, that little kid is really good at selling stuff? Okay, that was Johnny Whitaker back then. Okay, even before he turned 10 years old, this kid had something special. His energy, those big eyes, that happy voice was just perfect and could make anyone believe that a talking stuffed animal was the most amazing thing ever. And that's exactly what happened. Johnny became the main kid in all the Animal Yakers toy commercials. And it wasn't just because he looked cute on camera. The way he got really excited in those ads, smiling big, shouting with joy, acting like this was the best day ever, made kids fall in love with the toys and with him, too. Do you know what most kid actors have trouble with? Moving from commercials to real TV shows and movies. But not Johnny. In 1965, he got a part on a soap opera called General Hospital, playing a character named young Scotty Baldwin. This wasn't just a tiny part where he stood in the background. Scotty became one of the characters who stayed on the show the longest. It's not bad for a kid who started out trying to get toddlers to buy stuffed animals, right? He was really good in emotional scenes with grown-up actors, which is pretty impressive when you're still losing your baby teeth. Then 1966 came along. This was when everything changed for Johnny. He got a role in a big movie called The Russians Are Coming. The Russians Are Coming. It was a funny movie about the Cold War that made gentle jokes about how scared Americans were, because yes, even scary times like the Cold War had funny parts. The movie had lots of famous actors in it. Brian, Keith, Carl Reiner, Alan Arkin. But guess who still stood out? Johnny did. And Brian Keith really noticed him. He was so impressed by how talented and professional this kid was that when he got the main role in a CBS TV show called Family Affair, he didn't just move on and forget about Johnny. He went out of his way to tell the producers that Johnny should play his nephew on the show. And that one recommendation changed Johnny's whole life. Family Affair was a huge hit. Okay, it was on TV from 1966 to 1971 and became one of the most loved shows ever. The story was simple, but really sweet. Cool bachelor named Uncle Bill suddenly had to take care of 3 kids who didn't have parents anymore. He raised them in a fancy apartment in New York City with help from their very proper but lovable British butler, Mr. French. Johnny played Jody Davis, who was supposed to be one of the twins. Now, Here's the thing. Jody and Buffy, played by Anissa Jones, weren't supposed to be twins at first. But when the people making the show saw how cute they looked together and how well they got along, they changed the story. Just like that, they became twins, and it worked perfectly. Johnny brought so much heart to playing Jody. He wasn't just acting like a kid. He was a kid with real feelings. He could be funny, sweet, and sad, all at the same time. As people watching the show really connected with him. He wasn't just playing a character that people loved. He became that character. Even while he was busy with his big role on this hit show, Johnny didn't get lazy. He kept trying new roles and pushing himself to do different things. In 1968, he was a guest star on the famous Western TV show Bonanza. Have you ever seen it? It had horses, cowboy hats, and lots of drama. In an episode called A Dream to Dream, which was written by Michael Landon. Yes, the same Michael Landon. Johnny played a young boy who used his imagination to escape from the tough parts of his life. The episode also had the amazing actress Julie Harris in it. And once again, Johnny was fantastic. He was touching, honest, and totally believable. You could see it clearly. This kid wasn't just good for someone his age. He was just plain good at acting. So by the time most kids were learning how to ride bikes or trying to survive middle school, Johnny Whitaker was already making his mark in commercials, soap operas, sitcoms, and big movies. He wasn't just another kid actor. He was the kid actor that everyone was talking about. He was a real star. It makes you wonder what you were doing when you were 8 years old. Maybe you were just wasting your childhood playing around. By the late 1960s, Johnny Whitaker wasn't just that cute kid on Family Affair anymore. He was everywhere, and he was doing a lot more than just smiling for the camera. In 1969, while most kids his age were trying to get out of doing homework, Johnny was the star of a big Hallmark Hall of Fame show called The Littlest Angel. It was based on a popular children's story, and he played the main character, a little angel with a big heart. Now, this wasn't just a sweet, easy part. It needed real emotional depth. And Johnny brought that, mixing charm, innocence, and a surprising amount of maturity for someone his age. And to make it even better, he acted alongside famous actors like Fred Gwynne and Tony Randall, and he still managed to stand out. In 1970, he kept doing great work. He appeared on Green Acres, first as a character named Willie, and then again as Dinky Watson. These were different characters, same show, and he made both of them work well. Not many actors, especially young ones, get to do that. That same year, he also starred in a religious movie called A Day for Justin, made by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But he didn't stop there. That same year, he also appeared on The Virginian, one of the biggest Western shows at the time. Just like that, he went from playing an angel to playing a cowboy without any problems. Then came Bewitched, the magical TV show that made everyone wish they could fix their problems with magic. Johnny was a guest star in an episode called Samantha and the Beanstalk, playing a modern version of Jack from the classic fairy tale. He made the character feel fun and fresh, adding his own charm to the role. It was a quieter, more thoughtful part, and it showed Johnny's personal connection to his religious background. It was clear he wasn't just being thrown into any old roles. He was choosing parts that meant something to him. When Family Affair ended, a lot of child stars might have just disappeared, but Johnny wasn't one of them. In 1971, he had an amazing performance in a 2-part episode of Gunsmoke, one of those shows where everyone had to bring their best acting, and he did. Then, in 1973, he made a move that would make him a Saturday morning favorite with kids everywhere. He got the main role in Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, a weird and fun show from Sid and Marty Krofft. He played Johnny, a kind-hearted boy who finds and becomes friends with a misunderstood sea creature named Sigmund, was quirky, fun, and honestly kinda magical, and kids absolutely loved it. A big part of why kids loved it came from Johnny himself. He had that friendly, big brother energy that made you want to go on adventures with him. Around the same time, he also got into Disney movies, and not in small parts either. In 1972 alone, he starred in Snowball Express, a funny comedy about a family that gets a run-down hotel, The Biscuit Eater, a touching story about a boy and his dog, Kay, and Napoleon and Samantha, where he acted alongside a little girl named Jodie Foster. Yes, that Jodie Foster, in her very first movie. These roles showed just how much range he had as an actor. He could be funny, heartfelt, brave, sometimes all in one scene. Looking back, it's kind of amazing how much he'd accomplished before most kids even got to high school, while other child stars were stuck playing the same types of roles over and over. Johnny Whitaker was out there proving he could do anything before he ever thought about stepping away from acting. Johnny Whitaker gave us one of the most unforgettable performances of his whole career. He played Tom Sawyer in the musical version of Mark Twain's famous story, and he was perfect in it. He wasn't just acting, he was Tom, that troublemaker spark, the boyish charm, and the big heart underneath it all made the character come to life. Even today, fans still talk about it as one of his best performances ever. But fame isn't something Johnny held on to forever. As he got older, he slowly moved away from being in the spotlight. He didn't disappear completely. He just started exploring other parts of who he was. In an interview on The Late Late Show with Tom Snyder, he casually mentioned that he once worked as a computer consultant for CBS. Yep, from child star to tech guy. That moment kind of showed who he really is. Curious, able to adapt, and definitely more than just an actor. He also got into talent management, working alongside his sister at Whitaker Entertainment. One of the people he helped manage was Dana Plato, the former child actress from Different Strokes. You could tell he cared deeply, not just about the business, but about the people in it. He understood how tough life could get after childhood fame because he had lived through it himself. In 1999, all that hard work, growth, and quiet strength got recognized when he received the former Child Star Lifetime Achievement Award at the Youth and Film Awards. And honestly, it wasn't just about the roles he had played. It was about how he carried himself after the cameras stopped rolling. Not everyone makes it through that big change with grace, but Johnny did. Then, in 2012, he got back into entertainment, but this time through radio. He co-hosted the Dr. Zod and Johnny Show, which gave fans a chance to see a different side of him. Funny, warm, thoughtful. Didn't last very long, but it reminded everyone why we liked him so much in the first place. And just when people thought he was done with acting for good, he made a stage comeback in 2013 with To Kill a Mockingbird. He played Judge Taylor in a production by the Judson Theater Company. It wasn't a flashy role, but it was a meaningful one, and it felt like everything had come full circle. After everything he'd been through, Johnny was still doing what he loved, quietly, passionately, on his own terms. But once the camera stopped rolling and the fame went away, Johnny hit a really rough time in his life, a long one. Like a lot of child stars, he had a hard time with life after the spotlight was gone. The change was tough and painful. The acting jobs stopped coming. People stopped recognizing him, and underneath it all, he felt lost. That empty feeling led him straight into addiction. For years, drugs and alcohol were how he dealt with his problems. Not because he wanted to be reckless, but because he didn't know what else to do with the quiet that came after all the applause ended. Everything changed in 1997. His family stepped in and staged an intervention. And that moment became the wake-up call he needed. He got into a 12-step program and started the long road to getting better. But he didn't stop there. He used his experience to help other people find their way out of addiction too. He became a certified drug counselor, started a nonprofit called Paso por Paso to support Spanish-speaking addicts, and even started leading meetings inside jails. Not for attention. He did it because he knew how it felt to be stuck and wanted to give people a way out. Faith played a big role in helping him get through it all. He reconnected with his Mormon roots, started singing in the church choir, and got back into temple life. Years earlier, he had done a mission in Portugal, but now his faith felt more personal and more solid. He also found comfort in music again. These days, he talks about his past honestly. No sugarcoating, no drama, just the truth. He owns all of it, the fame, the fall, the fight back, because for him, helping other people find healing matters more than any old credits or TV reruns. Moving on, back in 2016, Johnny Whitaker surprised longtime fans with a memorable appearance in Amazon's reboot of Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. It was a fun little cameo. He played a grumpy boat owner named Zach, who brought some humor to the updated series, sharing screen time with quirky characters like Captain Barnabas, played by David Arquette, made it feel like a playful nod to the past. The show even had the original creators, Sid and Marty Krofft, in brief appearances, which made the nostalgia even stronger. So those who grew up watching the original show, seeing Johnny back in that world felt like looking through an old family photo album. You could almost feel the warmth and innocence of that time rushing back. But for Johnny, not every memory from those early acting years is so easy to think about. There's one episode of Family Affair that he's never been able to watch again. It aired in 1966, and even though he was only 6 years old at the time, it left a mark that stayed with him for decades. The episode was called Mrs. Beasley, Where Are You? And it was about losing a doll, but it was really about something deeper: sadness, change, and a desperate need for comfort after everything familiar had been taken away. To an adult watching, it might have seemed like just another emotional storyline, but for Johnny, who was still trying to make sense of his own world as a child actor, the emotions in that script hit a little too close to home. He was asked to show fear, sadness, and being vulnerable. These were emotions he really felt, but didn't quite have the words for yet. The scenes were especially tough because of how close he was to Anissa Jones, the actress who played Buffy. They had built a friendship off camera that felt more like real brother and sister than just co-stars. So when the storyline forced them to act out themes of loss and uncertainty, it felt uncomfortably real. Behind the cameras, the emotional weight of those moments wasn't something he could just shake off after the director yelled, "Cut," in interviews. Much later, Johnny opened up about how draining that episode was. The crying you see on screen wasn't just acting. Those were real tears coming from a place he hadn't quite figured out yet. A mix of pressure, confusion, and a quiet pain of having to grow up too fast under a spotlight. Even though his performance was praised, the experience took something out of him. And maybe that's why, all these years later, he still avoids that episode. It's not about being a perfectionist or wanting to forget. It's about protecting a piece of himself that even now still feels a little too raw. Moving on, there's one episode from Johnny Whitaker's childhood acting days that he just can't bring himself to watch. And it's not because it wasn't good. Actually, the opposite. It was one of the most powerful episodes he ever filmed. But to Johnny, it represents more than just a role. It's a painful snapshot of a complicated time in his life. Over the years, he's opened up about how that particular Family Affair episode became a symbol of everything he struggled with as a child star. On the surface, it might seem like just another performance, but for him, it marked a point where the lines between acting and real life started to get blurry. Millions of people loved him, yet behind the scenes, he often felt incredibly alone. People clapped for him on camera, but emotionally overlooked when the camera stopped rolling. He said that watching that episode today would be like ripping the lid off an old wound. Not because he's ashamed of the work, but because it brings back memories of being overwhelmed, exposed, and too young to fully understand what was happening around him. It wasn't just a tough day of filming. It was a moment where his real emotions were caught on film, wrapped in the safety of a script that ironically hit way too close to home. What made it even heavier was what happened later. Years later, after the heartbreaking loss of his co-star and close friend Anissa Jones in 1976. That episode took on an entirely different weight. The emotional scenes they shared in that storyline became more than just part of a TV plot. They became bittersweet echoes of a friendship that ended far too soon. That's why when people ask Johnny if he ever watches old Family Affair reruns, he usually smiles and says he's grateful for the show. And he is. It helped shape his career and introduced him to the world. But when it comes to that one episode, he politely draws the line. Not because he wants to forget, but because some memories are just too raw to relive. For Johnny, avoiding that episode isn't about running from the past. It's about honoring what he felt in that moment as a little boy who was expected to hold it all together.